Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name is Beth Cohen and today we'll be talking about Catalonia's wildfires. Catalonia frequently faces forest fires, which threaten ecosystems, wildlife and communities. The situation's been aggravated in recent years by climate change, drought and human activity. And throughout the summer months, fire risk is at its peak. On this week's podcast, we'll be finding out how Catalonia's firefighters and forest rangers are preparing emergency response measures and prevention strategies incorporating all the latest technology. Joining me to discuss this hot topic is Oriol Escudé. Hello, Oriol.
Hello, Beth. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining me. You know, it's such a funny coincidence. We're actually recording this podcast a little later than planned as we were interrupted by a fire drill.
It never happened in 2 years I've been working at Catalan News, and it happened the moment we started recording a podcast on forest fires.
It's Murphy's Law. So, Oriol, in recent years, the world's witnessed a worrying increase in the frequency, the size and the intensity of wildfires. What are the key factors behind this?
It's been mainly fueled by climate change. We've had prolonged droughts, rising temperatures, the land use has changed, so wildfires have become more aggressive, unpredictable, and deadly. We've seen this across the world, from the catastrophic wildfires in California to the ones in Australia, but also those in Canada in recent summers. These fires have burned millions and millions of hectares, and they have affected air quality even beyond their origin.
But what about Catalonia? How's the wildfire situation evolving here?
We're one of the regions in Europe more exposed to the risk of wildfires. We have the Mediterranean climate.
That's great for many things.
Great for many things, but not for wildfires. We have very hot and dry summers and strong winds like the Tramuntana, which you'll know.
I know this one well. It rips through my house in January.
Exactly. And in summer, it creates a perfect storm for fire outbreaks. We have also a very rugged terrain and dense forests, and this further complicates the work of firefighters.
So it's not a new problem?
No, in fact, Catalonia has always had wildfires. They've been a constant threat. The region experienced its most devastating fires in the 90s. In 1994, Catalonia faced the largest wildfires in its history. Nearly 80,000 hectares were burned in different places around the country, claiming lives, homes, and they devastated huge areas.
80,000 hectares, that's 800 square kilometers.
Yeah, to put it into perspective, that's the size of New York City, bigger than Singapore, and it is 120,000 football stadiums.
That is catastrophic.
Those wildfires, in fact, were a turning point in the history of the country. It was a huge shock for Catalan society, and it changed the perception of the public about wildfires. It also triggered more investment, and the firefighters were given more importance than ever before. And it even made that hundreds and hundreds of Catalans joined the bombers,
They're firefighters.
the Catalan firefighters, or the forest rangers, the rural agents, whether as volunteers or paid workers.
Mm-hmm. But that didn't put an end to major forest fires.
No, it was a slow process, and again, really bad weather conditions in 1998 made that large fires swept through the region again. Nearly 21,000 hectares were burned in 1998, and that was the definitive turning point. And since then, we've never had again wildfires with such an impact, especially thanks to the development in forest management, prevention, and, of course, the huge work done by bombers in responding to the events.
Mm-hmm. So what have the last few years been like?
Well, the 2012 fire season was significant, with 15,000 hectares burned, especially in the Empordà region. More recently, 2019 and 2022, they saw notable fire activity as well, but nothing approaching the devastation of the 90s.
Yeah, I remember we had major wildfires up on the Costa Brava in the summer of 22. So which areas of Catalonia are more prone to wildfires?
Well, most areas of the country are at high risk of wildfires. The only areas with very low risk of wildfires are the northern counties in the Pyrenees and a few other small areas that are not at risk, but all of Catalonia, we could say.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing because the mountains are greener and cooler and they don't dry out over summer. I mean, it's common sense.
Yeah, exactly. But apart from that, most of Catalonia is considered at risk or even at high risk of wildfires. One of the main areas is in fact central Catalonia. The 1994 wildfires happened especially in central Catalonia. Actually, one of the towns most impacted by those fires was my hometown, Navàs, in the Bages region.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it must have been a really stressful time for you.
Yeah, everyone in my family remembers those fires. And I think it changed a lot the perception they had about fires. And I saw that through the way they educated me in respecting the forest and respecting firefighters as well.
Mm-hmm. Can you remember the damage? I mean, maybe the scars to the landscape and the time it took the vegetation to regenerate?
Absolutely. That was a constant in my childhood, seeing the landscape around Navàs. Many areas were still recovering from those fires.
Oh, it's a shame. That area is so beautiful.
It is. All that area, Bages, Berguedà, Anoia, Osona, Solsonès, all the areas in central Catalonia are very much at high risk of wildfires. There are also many places in Tarragona, in the south, such as Conca de Barberà or Ribera d'Ebre. And then in Girona, as we talked, there are many areas at high risk, especially the Alt Empordà, an area you know very well.
Yes.
And the Baix Empordà as well. These two areas, especially in this century, have been pretty much affected by wildfires.
To understand what goes into preparing for and fighting these fires on the front lines, we spoke with David Borrell, the head of the Bombers or Fire Brigade of the Catalan government. Let's hear that interview.
Em dic David Borrell i Anglada, fa 20 anys que soc bomber i em fa 7 que soc cap del cos.
David has been a firefighter for 20 years, and for the last 7, he's led the fire department. If anyone's qualified to speak about the job, it's him. We meet at the Firefighters Operational Center in Bellaterra, just outside Barcelona, the nerve center during major wildfires. David shares what makes this fire service truly unique.
El cos de bombers és un dels referents internacionals en la resposta a les grans emergències.
The Catalan Fire Service is an international benchmark for responding to major emergencies, especially large forest fires, which are the most common type of emergency in our country. Our unique characteristic is that we are a single fire service from operations to strategy. In other words, the people who manage the emergencies are the same people who execute them. This is uncommon among other fire services in the rest of Spain and across Europe.
I també té una altra característica que és que som un cos multirisc.
Another feature is that we are a multi-risk service. In many places, forest and urban firefighters are separate entities. Here, everything is integrated. Urban, forest and rescue are all part of one fire service. This has made us unique in our development.
Diguéssim, diferents o singulars en el nostre desenvolupament.
In fact, the Catalan Bombers are so unique that fire departments from around the world come here to train and learn from them.
El que seria sistema de comandament i el que seria aquesta planificació per objectius.
We are a benchmark in terms of organisation and planning, and we share our experience within Spain and internationally. Luckily, we don't experience tsunamis, earthquakes or other types of emergencies, so forest fires are our primary concern. And we are at the forefront of forest fire extinction, on par with countries such as Australia and the United States. We exchange knowledge with them.
I a nivell d'Europa, el que està passant ara és que els països del nord d'Europa, degut a l'emergència climàtica, comencen a entrar en rang.
Now, what is happening is that due to climate change, northern European countries are beginning to be affected by forest fires. They are increasingly concerned about this issue and come to us to gain experience.
I venen doncs, a agafar molta experiència en aquí.
David brings up climate change, but how exactly is it affecting them? And how do they see its impact on the ground?
L'emergència climàtica en els incendis forestals, per nosaltres, sobretot té dos grans efectes.
Climate change has two major effects on forest fires. First, fires are becoming more intense and aggressive, spreading more rapidly. Second, due to the erratic behaviour, these fires could become megafires, as seen in California, Australia and Chile. In megafires, the interaction between the fire and atmosphere is so strong that it alters general atmospheric dynamics. These fires do not burn hundreds of hectares, they burn thousands or even millions.
To confront this growing emergency, the Bombers have had to adapt, improve and stay one step ahead of the fire. One of their key tools, technology.
El sistema de comandament.
Thanks to technology, we have been able to fully integrate our command centres, operations and procedures. Everyone knows their exact role. It has also helped us specialise in analysing and supervising fire behaviour. For instance, we can closely monitor aerial resources such as planes and helicopters.
També pels mitjans aèris, de quin és el seguiment, com estan...
This allows us to better determine where to release water and evaluate the effectiveness of the releases.
Com són les descàrregues, si són efectives o no són efectives. També la incorporació dels drons és un salt potent.
The introduction of drones has also marked a significant leap forward. This year, we increased our drone fleet from 5 to 30, and our drones are now equipped with greater capabilities and more advanced technology. Drones are especially valuable for monitoring nighttime wildlife operations. Since planes and helicopters cannot fly at night, we rely on drones for aerial surveillance. Their thermal cameras allow us to fly over fire zones at night and clearly identify the most active hotspots. This enables us to accurately map the fire. A few years ago, we barely used this technology, but now it is an essential part of our operations.
Una complementarietat que fins fa uns anys doncs, això no s'utilitza.
The rapid and recent rise of artificial intelligence has taken the world by surprise, and it's already proving to be a valuable asset for firefighters in many areas.
L'ús de la intel·ligència artificial també ens ha permès fer un salt endavant.
The use of artificial intelligence has helped us make major strides. This year, we introduced a new AI tool that has already proven highly reliable. It analyses current weather conditions and compares them to our wildfire database. For example, it might tell you that the current fire is similar to one you put out in the past. This historical context helps you understand the current fire.
I després també, amb l'ús de la intel·ligència artificial, l'altre punt potent que...
AI is also essential for detecting extreme fire behaviour. By factoring in weather, vegetation and other conditions, AI can predict where these behaviours are likely to occur. This allows us to make better decisions about where to deploy personnel, which containment or attack strategies to use, and whether to evacuate or lock down a town.
Més de contenció o més d'atac directe, a poder prendre mesures de confinament, d'evacuació, ens ajuda, diguéssim, en aquest suport.
Thank you to David Borrell for speaking with us. It's exciting to hear how new technologies are making a difference to Catalonia's firefighting strategies.
And I think it's also important to note that the Catalan Fire Department is one of the youngest in the world. They were created in the 80s, but they did not receive proper investment until years later. So they had a quick and amazing development in the last 3 decades.
Yeah, they certainly did. And how many firefighters are there at the moment? And considering that they cover an area with 8 million residents, is that sufficient?
So we have nearly 5,000 firefighters in Catalonia. To put it in perspective, in the 90s, when the massive fires happened, Catalonia had some 3,000 firefighters. So the numbers have increased significantly. Mm-hmm. There were huge cuts during the 2008 financial crisis, but the department has been growing and growing again, and it's recovering from that.
Mm-hmm. And some of these firefighters are volunteers, aren't they?
Yeah, and a big number. From the 4,700 firefighters in Catalonia, 60% of them are paid firefighters and the rest are volunteers. Mm-hmm. But volunteer doesn't exactly mean volunteer as we understand it. They have to pass an exam, a physical test, as well as complying with many other requirements. And they do get paid. But they only get paid when they are on service, on duty. No?
Okay, so they're on call and they only receive money if they actually have to intervene in a fire.
Exactly.
Okay, and if they don't work, they don't receive anything.
Exactly.
And how do the numbers in Catalonia compare with other regions?
So Catalonia has 0.6 firefighters per inhabitant. It's a weird figure when you hear it, but it's a good figure. For example, across Spain, the figure is 0.4. Compared to the US or Australia, two countries where they need a lot of preparation against fires, the numbers are better than in Catalonia. The US has 3.5 firefighters per inhabitant and Australia has 6, for example. Mm-hmm. But we also have to bear in mind that many of the countries rely a lot on volunteers, which is not exactly the case in Catalonia. For example, Australia's fire services are overwhelmingly volunteer-based. Nearly 9 out of 10 firefighters are volunteers there.
Oh, gosh.
And here we have a 60% paid firefighters, 40% volunteers. So the proportion in Catalonia of paid firefighters versus volunteer, it's way better than the rest.
So overall, we could say that Catalonia has an average figure of firefighters per capita, but a very high figure of employed professional firefighters versus volunteers.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and it's also a big number considering that around 70% of the population in Catalonia lives in the Barcelona metropolitan area, which doesn't have much potential burning area compared to other more sparsely populated areas.
Exactly.
So the work the bombers or fire brigade do is fire extinction, that's putting the fire out. But fire management is much more than this. It's also about prevention. Who's in charge of this?
The bombers are, but there are also many other departments playing a role in fire prevention. For example, the Department of Climate Action, the rural agent or forest rangers, and local councils. So everyone here plays a role. For example, the bombers, they maintain water points or prepare action plans, carrying out inspections, while the forest rangers patrol the territory. So everyone here has a different role.
And what are the main focuses of prevention?
The main one is definitely fuel management. This means basically reducing the amount of vegetation that can burn, which helps then to slow down fires or even stop them. This work happens all year round. In fact, you need to arrive in summer well prepared. In Catalonia, it's a big issue as people have moved to the cities and abandoned rural areas. Many forests have been left unmanaged. Data from the government shows that 64% of Catalonia is forested, but only about 20% of that area is actively managed. That means that there's a lot of forests not managed, hence a lot of vegetation has built up, and the amount of fuel available for fires has increased dramatically.
The people who know the land best are the agents rurals or forest rangers. There are nearly 800 of them across Catalonia. They're usually the first to detect a fire, and their role is key in preventing them. We spoke with Chief Inspector of the Agents Rurals, Antoni Mur, to find out more about their work.
Els agents rurals, pel que fa als incendis forestals, treballen sobretot en la prevenció dels incendis.
When it comes to forest fires, forest rangers are primarily focused on prevention, particularly monitoring human activities that may cause fires and later determining their causes. In Catalonia, 90% of forest fires are caused, in one way or another, by human activity, whether accidental, due to negligence, or even intentional.
De forma accidental, negligent o intencionada. Home, el que més ens preocupa és la intencionalitat.
What raises the most concern is intentionality, as 1 in 4 fires are deliberately started. This is the most difficult cause for us to prevent, and also the hardest to trace back to the perpetrators. Negligence is another major concern. Around 40% of fires are caused by human negligence, and in this case, we do have the capacity to prevent them, mainly through awareness campaigns and better control of activities.
Ara mateix estem en el període de sega de cereal.
For example, it's currently cereal harvesting season, an activity that poses a high risk of forest fires due to the combination of dry vegetation, complex machinery, and high temperatures. During this period, we implement a specific operation aimed at prevention and enabling a rapid initial response in case of a fire.
Bueno, hi ha una primera fase que és de determinació de l'àrea on s'ha iniciat l'incendi.
To determine the cause of a wildfire, we start by analysing the terrain, the location and the surrounding conditions. We look for burn patterns and marks left by the fire on the vegetation to narrow down the area where it started. Once we've identified that spot, we carry out a thorough investigation to try to pinpoint the exact origin, often linked to some form of human activity nearby.
Bueno, jo crec que estem començant a veure els resultats que ens dona la intel·ligència artificial.
We're now seeing the first benefits of using artificial intelligence. Typically within 3 days, we can predict with high certainty where and when large forest fires might occur. Based on that information, we deploy a targeted surveillance operation in those areas.
Bé, els agents rurals no és la nostra responsabilitat la gestió forestal.
One of the main challenges of forest management in Catalonia is that 80% of forested land is privately owned, and forests have very low profitability. As a result, private landowners are often reluctant to invest in proper forest management, since there is little to no economic return. We need to find ways to increase the value and profitability of these forests so that owners are encouraged to invest and keep their land in good condition.
Els productes forestals perquè els propietaris forestals puguin invertir en el manteniment de les seves finques.
Thank you to Antoni Mur of the Agents Rurals for speaking with us. So, Oriol, what should we expect for the 2025 wildfire season?
So the outlook is a bit optimistic, but not too much, and the risk remains very high. But we've come out of a 3-year drought. This time last year, for example, we were talking about drought. The reservoirs were at 30% of capacity. Now they are at 80%. It's rained a lot this winter and spring. So this is, of course, good news. The forests are moist and soil moisture levels are higher than at this time in the last 3 summers. So,
well, that should help, shouldn't it?
At first glance, this, yes, might seem like good news, and it is. But experts warn that the rain has led to a surge in vegetation growth, which can rapidly dry out in the summer. And all this vegetation, when it's dry and there's heat, it becomes green fuel. That's what the firefighters call it, green fuel. And it's this highly flammable vegetation that can intensify fires when they start.
So the dry grass becomes like straw and acts as kindling for the fires, if you like. In short, more vegetation means more fuel to burn.
Yep, exactly. And we have high temperatures expected. We're suffering them right now.
Yeah, so we're both here in short sleeves.
Exactly. There's not expected to be a very extreme, prolonged heat waves. We'll have heat waves for sure, but it's not expected that they last for an extended period of time. But anyway, the fire risk is always there. For example, this last weekend, we had the first example of this.
Yes, we had the first forest fire of the season up in Cadaqués.
Yeah, exactly. And the town was actually isolated and the road accessing it was closed. It was a small fire and it was quickly put out. But, it was the first warning that the risk is very high everywhere in Catalonia.
So the authorities are remaining vigilant and the firefighters, the bombers, are getting prepared for what lies ahead.
Exactly. And it's something important to bear in mind. Things that sound very easy, recommendations for everyone out there listening to this podcast. But every year there's someone who does something that they should not. For example, lighting a barbecue, lighting bonfires, just lighting up a fire anywhere in Catalonia. Don't do it in summer. Don't throw your cigarette butt out of the window of the car. Things like that they're very easy not to do, and still there's always people doing them.
Yeah, I think it's just a lack of awareness of how serious it is.
Absolutely. And if you see any smoke, for example, or any activity or something that might seem like a small fire, call 112 in Catalonia and report the fire.
So whilst the situation in Catalonia this summer isn't as dire as in previous drought years, complacency isn't an option. Wildfire risk remains, and with climate conditions shifting unpredictably, each new summer brings new challenges. We'll continue tracking how this wildfire season unfolds, and in the meantime, we encourage you to exercise caution and be aware of the wildfire risks. That's almost all we have time for today. But before we go, it's time for our Catalan phrase of the week. Oriol, what do we have?
Qui juga amb foc es crema.
He who plays with fire gets burned.
Yeah, exactly. A warning about taking dangerous risks or engaging in reckless behavior, which encourage you not to do. Especially if you play with actual fires.
Don't do it. Just don't do it. This week on Filling the Sink, we've been talking about Catalonia's wildfires. Thank you to everyone who spoke with us. And thank you to Oriol for joining me here in the studio.
Cheers, Beth. And happy summer to everyone, for those who are lucky to have holiday already.
Yes, enjoy the warm weather. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't done so already. We'll be back again next Saturday with another exciting episode of Filling the Sink. On behalf of all the team here at Catalan News, I'm Beth Cohen, wishing you a great weekend. Fins aviat. Adeu.